guys, May Flom here. You're here in the studio with me. Just really quick, I just want to show you a really quick transfer technique. So transfers can be a lot of fun. And what you see here, I wasn't sure if this would work at all, the particular paper. So if you have a paper, basically you need something printed, okay? You need it printed and it needs to be... Some prints work better than others. Some materials work better than others. I have a bunch of this calendar paper, so I thought I would do a test first to see if it worked. I put it on here, tested. It is working. And let me show you first. Well, actually here, I'll show you first how you get it started. So you're going to need some multi-medium, some gel medium and matte finish, something to that effect. And I am going to smear it on here. Here's the trick. You don't need to have a thick coating. Thin coating is actually usually better. However, you can't have gaps. In other words, like you can see here in the middle, there's some spots where the raw wood is exposed. You can't have that. You need everything to be covered. So I like using a little palette knife like so, and just spreading things around, making sure everything is covered to, if not to the edges, then at least the area that you're going to cover or that the material is going to be on. And I don't stress out if it's slightly uneven, it'll work out. Like I said before, the key is that there are no spots where the wood, the canvas, whatever you're transferring onto is exposed. And I am using the Texture Paste Transparent Matte from Ranger, but gel medium, multi-medium, whatever you've got will work. The next thing, you're going to want your image, and here I've got a Game of Thrones image that I want. And I tore it out so that it's smaller, and I did this because I really wanted, this is one of my favorite characters, and I wanted her to be smaller than the surface. And then I'm just going to press this on here. Now, I like to take a brayer because we want to make sure that there is pressure all over. Now, what you might find in spots, and I just found it over here, you may find excess coming out at the sides. That's okay. You don't really want to worry about that. The only thing you want to make sure you don't pull that excess off and onto the top. You want to keep the top not having any of that medium on it. So what I tend to do is just stop short of the edges, as you see me doing here. If you get a little bit on it, it's not a big deal, but just like to press. Not a lot of pressure, guys. I'm not putting a ton of pressure. We're just gently pressing and rolling. Just make sure that there's an all over pressure here, that everything is touching, because when I go to take this off, we want this to turn out good. Here's the hardest part. This has to go and sit until all the medium is totally dry. Now you could take your finger and swipe along the edges to get rid of any excess on the edge. That would be a good idea. That'd be a good idea because then that's gone, that's out of there. You don't have to worry about it. So once everything, now I like working on wood, but canvas is great too. Once everything is totally dry, this is the very time consuming part. What you do, pick a spot, spray it with water, and then gently rub the paper. Now this is a very thick paper that I happen to be working with, so it takes a bit more doing. But what you're gonna see is the image, whatever image you pressed face down, is going to reveal itself. And from there, maybe it's the start of an art journal. You could do this into an art journal. You absolutely could do this onto paper to paper. You could do whatever you like. But once you get all the way through, the only real rule here, don't use an image that has to be precise. If you have an image, like this is a man's face, actually, I just didn't particularly care if this man turned out or not, so that's why I use that. But use an image that doesn't have to be precise. In other words, you may have some gaps, you may have some spots where it rubs through or it rubs all the way off. So because of that, you don't want to have something that if it's not absolutely perfect, it's not going to work. And you can see sometimes it tears more, sometimes less. Do not do this in the sink. As you can imagine, doing this in the sink, all this paper pulp, it would clog your drains. So you're going to want to do this somewhere else. I'm just giving it a nice all over, and you'll have to continue working. In other words, this part takes a long time. I'm not going to do this all for you on camera. You just have to continue I just like rubbing with my fingers. Keep it nice and wet. You don't want it to get dry, because if it gets dry as you're doing this process, what can happen is you can end up tearing things, and you definitely don't want to tear anything. But you can see how all that top layer rubs off. And when it dries, if it turns gray, let me show you that. Look how that's turning out though. There's his mouth and his beard. That's crazy. I love it. When it dries, you'll know if you're done, because if you dry it and it turns super gray like that, do you see how it turned gray? That means we just might have a little more rubbing off to do. Now, and it might become very, very small amount. Now, if you get to the point where you feel like it's totally done, what I like to do, because it helps so that it doesn't turn that grayish color again, take a little of the multimedium and put it on there, and then let it set. So it'll kind of seal things back in, but it'll also prevent that from turning all gray. Don't ask me, or, you know, turning like pulpy again. It only works if you're pretty much done, and this, you know, it needs to dry. It's got a ways to go. And this particular one, by the way, guys, this one is my test. I'm basically going to just, now, once this video is done, I'm going to sand this whole thing down with a block of sandpaper. That's another thing that I like about this, is if it doesn't turn out, if you don't like it, take some sandpaper, block or whatever, sand it off. Now, in this particular example, it looks like I could have done that, you know, for some of the upper layer anyway. But if I just sand this really well, whatever is not stuck down will go away, and I can paint over this. So what I like about this technique is if it doesn't turn out the way you hoped, or in my case, it turned out this was just a test, I can now paint over this and do a completely different project. Okay, I'm going to show you my finished Brienne canvas here, so you can see how that one turns out. Of course, that'll be in a couple hours from the time I'm actually filming this, because it needs to rest, it needs to dry. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or leave me a comment over on YouTube. I'll see you next time.